Catherine's going to kick us off today. Go ahead.
Welcome to the well. Get filled up. The source of something greater. This
is Drew. And I don't think we're going to let Kat introduce the show anymore.
Oh, you will, because it's
You're
awesome.
Right. You're right. And
I don't like to be
us...
conventional. That's people know me. They know how I am. And if you don't know me, you should get to know me. Now you know.
Wow. Okay. Episode 17 of The Well. Welcome in.
You sure it's 17?
It is 17. I double checked. I fact checked. I can't believe we're
Good
on our
job.
17th episode. Happy 17th anniversary.
Didn't realize that was an anniversary.
I just, hey, it's a new episode, a new day.
Sure, I like it. Positive energy. Let's go.
So speaking of positive energy, that'll be the topic, sort of the topic for today. So in current times, Kat and I are going through some shit, right? World's been a little hard place to live. Stuff. Yes. Yeah, this ain't PG all the time. You feel me, doggy? Like, for real, I'm from the East. We have a certain vernacular we like to use, and Catherine doesn't like my East Coast flair. But that's
Sometimes
not what we're here to talk about. We needed some things to feel good about. So nostalgia can make you feel pretty good. And this impending, snowstorm that was going to shut the entire country down. It's nice to know that some things are consistent. We overcommit and underdeliver, right? So as far as the weather.
So true.
As the, supermarket shelves were an indicator. But in any case, out here in Texas, we did get couple inches of snow and ice. So
yeah, looking out the window
now. Talk
now.
about some of the best memories as a kid when it came to snow days. Like, snow days were magical days for me. Were they magical for you?
They were.
So let's talk about a school day snow day. So we were talking about this the other day. We were in the kitchen making fat kid food. Catherine decided to pull out the bread maker. And that's never a good indication, because you're like, all right, I'm really trying to not eat a ton of carbs. And Catherine pulls out the bread maker, and it's like carb load day is
but it's
every
good
hour.
Carbs. It's like bread that doesn't have lots of stuff in it. That's bad.
It was tasty. It was tasty.
It was good.
But
especially that.
And we got to
loaf.
talking. Yeah, that was good stuff. Lemon loaf. So we got to talking, and I was thinking back. I was like, do you remember? You'd hear the weather, right? And back in the day, we had to wait for the news, or we had to tune in to AM radio, right? Traffic on the twos, and then weather. No. Okay. No.
Hey, some people might remember that.
Yeah. Well, I'm from the Stone Age, so I remember it. Pepperidge Farm remembers.
Get to the point, boy.
I was like, do you remember how we used to find out if school was closed?
We were watching TV, and this triggered your memory. You were like, oh.
Yeah, because I was like, I remember waking up at the butt crack of dawn, which never happens on a regular school day.
No.
And turning on the news and looking at the little ticker tape at the bottom to see if I saw my school number.
Yeah.
Which I don't remember. But the code, right? Like, you're anticipating the code to know if school's closed.
Mm-hmm.
And if it wasn't closed, you were at least hopeful for like a 2-hour delay.
Right. Yeah.
And here, I have to say, like, back in Pennsylvania, back in Philly, it took a lot to close a school. Here in Texas, oh my gosh, like, school's already closed at the threat of snow. So
that is true.
But the other thing I was thinking about was, you used to also be able to call a number to your school and find out, and it was always busy. Everyone was trying to call, and it was just like, you kept dialing. It was almost like trying to get through to a radio show contest, right? Like, you'd be busy, and you hit redial. So do you remember? I think you do. I mean, you kind of alluded to it, that kind of moment of seeing the number pop up on the screen.
Oh, yeah. And being like, yes. Yeah.
And why were you so excited if school was closed?
So I'm from Memphis, Tennessee, and we get every season, the change of seasons, which is great. But it was rare that we would have a lot of snow. And when we did have snow, the night before a school day, you'd be like, I wonder if we're going to have school. So the school I went to, we had a secretary, and she would always record the weather message on the automated phone number, and on the voicemail. So when people would call, so sometimes she wouldn't get to it that night, you would have to wait and see. And it'd be like, I think our school started at like 8 a.m. or something like that. And so.
Damn, you started late.
We did. Yeah. That was when you went to school, like, well, for us, it was 8 to 3:30 or 3:15 on Wednesdays. We get out early. And I know a lot of the girls I went to school with would remember that. But yeah, so anyway, I'd be like, and then you start thinking about what you're going to do on the snow day. So I lived in a cove, a cul-de-sac when I was a little kid, and I had mostly boys in my neighborhood. I loved going outside to play. So we were always inventing ways to like sled on the snow or the ice. Then there was always barely just enough, kind of like in Texas, where you could do something. So I was always stealing we never had sleds. You know, you didn't need it. And actually, in Texas, I bought a little red sled, like a little plastic one, and I had it for 2 years, the past 2 years, and I was like, "I'll just sell it. I'm never gonna use it." And I got all discouraged. I sold it like 2 weeks ago, and now I'm like, I turned to you what was it, yesterday or the day before? And I was like, "Dang it, I knew I shouldn't have sold that sled." But anyway, I would use the laundry basket. We had 2 different things. It was either a plastic bin or a laundry basket if you didn't have, because plastic bins were kind of expensive. So if you didn't have a plastic bin, you were using the laundry basket, and it wasn't that sturdy to hold a child's body in. So it never worked right. But you know what? It worked, and you had fun. And, you know, you ran outside and you made snowballs and snowball fight. It's just one of those things I think that you don't ever outgrow. It's a
Yeah,
memory that comforts you.
I will say the memory for me started with my mom, who loved the snow for whatever reason. And
Mm.
anytime there was a chance of snow, she would do her snow dance, she would call it. She
Oh,
would do
that's
this little
cute.
dance, and then it
Aw.
would always snow afterwards. So we grew up in that,
Ooh,
kind of
fancy.
excitement. I know, right? Shout out to my mom.
Magic.
Her birthday was on the 20th. So happy heavenly birthday, mom.
Hmm.
So it was always it started magical when we were little, and my friends and I were thick as thieves, right? We'd go prospecting for
Mhm.
places to sled, and it was always
Yeah,
somewhere where you weren't allowed to sled, right?
of
Like it was
course.
forbidden.
The
And
best.
of course, the big targets by us were golf courses because they were
Oh, good
wide
idea,
open,
yeah.
they had
Yep,
hills, and of course, that was a big no-no, but we did it anyway.
of
And
course.
we always I'll never forget making my own you brought it up. Everything you're so creative as a kid. Anything is a sled. It could become a
Right.
sled.
A
So
cardboard box. I use that a
anything.
lot.
And that yeah, and it worked. It
Mhm.
actually worked. It depended on the snow, but at one point, we had blade sleds, like what were they called? Not red flyers, not radio flyers.
Oh, I
Anyway,
don't know what this
they
is.
were the blade sleds
Blade?
with the wooden handle and you could turn it, and we used to drag
Yeah,
like,
I just looked
get
it up.
someone on a
Yep.
bike or a
Aw.
car, and we
Ooh,
would
y'all were
drag behind.
fancy.
Yeah, we were crazy.
My
So
gosh.
and then we started thinking, and this was before snowboards kinda were around.
Yeah.
My one friend made a snowboard out of wood, and then I used to take the trucks and wheels off my skateboard
Uh-huh.
and put strings on it to keep my boots in there, and used to use those as a snowboard. It never worked well. It was always,
It's funny though that you
face
thought of
planting.
that even as a kid, as kind of a this is the technique that you use on snow. It's funny what we think of.
Yeah, and everything was fair game.
Yeah.
Anything that you could put your butt on or feet on was fair game. So
Right.
literally, it was, and I remember also when the saucer sled came out, that was a big deal.
Yeah.
The big metal, and I'm not
That's
talking, it's similar to
that's awesome.
Christmas Vacation, but when
Chevy
that saucer
Chase.
sled came out, that changed the game. You used to spin around, it was like that was the shit. That
Yeah.
was the shit. The saucer sled
I
was the best.
Every time I see as a kid when I watched the Christmas Vacation, I was always like, "I want one of those." Yeah, it is pretty cool what you do as a kid, playing outside. And then for me, I'd always think a year ahead. Imagine that. I'd be
Wow.
like,
Did
"Okay."
you make a list?
No, I was like, well, in my mind I did. I was like, "Okay, scoping out places for next year if this happens again." And you would always think, "Yeah, we could go over here by this lake or, by whatever." One year I lived in apartments and there were a bunch of hills, and that was probably one of the most fun places that sledded. But yeah, great memories and
But let's
freezing.
talk about some of the funny memories when it came to I'm talking when we're little kids, right? And snow is amazing when you're super little, but I'm really gonna date myself, age myself, which my birthday is coming up in a few days.
It is.
I remember the boots being just torture devices. So, like, when you first started your parents first started letting you go out in the snow, I'll never forget my mom putting plastic bags over my socks, right? And then slipping into these, like, rubber vinyl boots that were completely open at the top, and they just had this little rubber clasp, like, it was like a rubber band, and it would go around the button,
Mhm.
and it didn't hold anything out, right? So you had these bags on your feet, and then you got snow in there, but yet you never kinda complained about the cold because you didn't wanna go inside.
Yeah. No,
So here
definitely
you
not.
are with wet, sloppy feet, and as Catherine will attest to, one of my biggest pet peeves is wet feet. I hate when my feet get wet. It's a weird thing, I know, but it would always drive me nuts, but I never wanted to come inside because I didn't wanna stop. I didn't wanna stop being out in the amazing snow.
Mhm.
So, did you have those boots, or was it just my generation that had
No,
those awful torture
unfortunately,
devices?
I didn't have snow boots. I don't know why. I think because we didn't wanna buy them, or my mom didn't ever buy them, or we didn't know where to buy them. I have no idea. All I know is that I always wore, like, it was just, like, regular tennis shoes, and we used to call them tennis
Oh
shoes back
gosh.
then, and I would have, like, a sweatpants suit on as, like, a five-year-old. It'd be, like, the cotton sweatpants. I mean, what you see now, with the sweatshirt, and then my mom would layer me to death. She would put, like, a wool sweater on me, and then she would put, like, another set of pants on me, and then she'd put this used to be a big thing, and long puffer jackets are now again but I did not like I remember exactly what color it was, and I think a lot of other people had the same coat, and if you remember, post it in the comments. It was this long, light gray, kinda like silver outer puffer jacket, like, the color was silver, and then on the inside, it was like this light mauve purple, and it had a hood, and my mom would put me in that thing, and I literally could not move, I was so stuffed in, but I'd waddle outside, and, my sister was 8 years older than me, or is 8 years older than me, so we had a good time. We definitely did.
That's awesome.
But
Yeah,
I didn't
I
have traditional snow gear like
I
you
don't know if
folks
I would
back
say
east.
I mean, I wouldn't say we had traditional snow gear. I remember the jackets being, like, super stiff, so your arms were all you could barely put your arms
Yeah.
down, and then you had the hood that was you could barely move your neck, so you were
Earmuffs.
yeah, well,
I
no,
totally
we wore
wore
hats.
earmuffs. Really?
We wore
Okay.
hats, and do you remember the clips for your mittens? It would clip on to the little metal
Yes.
clip that would clip
Yep.
onto the that
Although I
would
didn't
never
have
work.
those.
You would
Of
always
course
lose it
not.
anyway. So, but I remember the first time, like, I remember I have a recollection of the first time I wore, like, real snow boots, the moon boots from the '80s. I don't know if anybody
Oh,
remembers
yeah.
those, but
I
those
definitely
were
remember.
all the rage, and snow, when you put those moon boots on, you were like, just you could plow through it excuse me, anything. Those were
Yeah.
revolutionary in snow wear. So, quite a difference from putting your foot in a bag into a rubber boot that didn't do anything.
Yeah.
So, that was always, and there wasn't a lot like, you always were wet, right? There wasn't snow pants, you didn't have, like, all this stuff to
No, but
repel water.
you were okay with it
Yeah, and
because
I
it was fun.
well, you just didn't wanna you didn't wanna be inside. You
No.
couldn't keep me inside on a snow day. Even now, even today, as I'm looking outside, I wanna be outside. Like, I wanna go play in the snow. I wanna
And
go
you have
sledding.
gone outside multiple times, actually.
I know, I know. It's for whatever reason, the snow just gives me just good feelings for whatever. And I love. This is kind of weird. I used to love taking my car out in the snow and just driving around, teaching myself how to drive in inclement weather, which has benefited us
True.
since we have driven down the mountain in some of the most treacherous conditions ever at like 4 in
Mm,
the morning with
yeah, you're
no
excellent.
visibility. So there's just tons of dumb shit I did in the snow. I mean, we used to pull each other behind a car. Like we were
Definitely done
almost
that.
like water skiing on the snow. Like, what a
Yeah.
dumb idea. That was
Uh,
always fun.
but it looked great.
Yeah, and, those are the times I wish we had cell phones because, like, literally recording some of that stuff would have been awesome.
I know. It is kinda sad we didn't. So what did you eat? Always chicken noodle soup for me when I come inside.
Yeah, I think that's when you first really acquired the Campbell's soup, chicken noodle soup taste. It's
Yeah,
so
totally.
distinct that, and you had sometimes if my mom was feeling up to it, the thermos, right? The plastic thermos would come
Yeah.
out with
Mhm.
the top would be the bowl.
Yeah.
So,
Hot
and
chocolate
I
too.
and you always wanted to eat out of a thermos. I don't know why,
Yeah.
it was just super cool to eat out of a thermos.
So true. It was more fun. Especially if
Was it?
you could twist off the top and it turns into a little
Yeah.
cup, you know?
Yeah, I mean, that was cool, but didn't make it taste any better, but
I
maybe it
know
did.
I'll never forget, I had a Crayola crayon as
Oh, I
a
remember that.
do you? As
I
the
do.
thermos with
I do.
the top was the top of the crayon was the cup. Oh my gosh, I loved it so much. Then I had a Rainbow Bright one when I was really little, and I would take it to lunch. I love that thing, and I love the smell of the plastic.
See, I had metal lunch boxes, so we didn't have plastic yet. Growing up, I had to
Yeah.
start it off with the metal, and I had some cool metal ones.
Did
I think
you?
I had a Star Wars one. I had a Rockford Files one.
I
I
don't
don't
know
know
what
if
Rockford
you probably
Files
don't
is.
remember that. The
No.
Jim Rockford where he would drive backwards and then do a 180. Anyway, I was always fascinated by the Jim Rockford, but
That's why
I'm
you
trying to
drive the way you
think.
do.
Yeah, right. I wish I could do a Jim Rockford. Can't quite do that anymore. They don't put parking brakes in cars anymore, so it's really hard to do that stuff.
Hmm,
But,
wonder why.
I just think I actually don't think it has to do with anything like that, but who knows? I'm
It's
trying to
all
think
about
what
money.
other. Yeah, I don't know if it's about money. I just don't know if we needed to upgrade the way we use a parking brake, so and people like you never use the parking brake,
No, definitely not.
so you never drove like, clearly you haven't owned a stick shift.
No, but my dad was real big into pulling the brake up. He was always afraid the car would roll back out of the driveway, even though our driveway was flat.
Hey, you never know. Can't be
I
too
know.
safe.
He's always
Can't be too
prepared.
safe.
Yeah,
What
but,
other what other fun lunch things do we have? Trying to
uh,
think back, like,
always the trays, that, like you remember those? Maybe y'all didn't have those. We talked about this. The plastic, those thick plastic trays for lunchroom. It was either brown or
huh? Like prison.
and it had a texture to it. It was there
Yep.
on top. Do you remember that? Where
Yeah.
you could rub your fingers across it and it had, like, this pattern on it? It's
Yeah, so it was
crazy
to
that I
keep
still
it
remember that.
from sticking, like, so from sliding
Oh,
around, they
yeah.
put texture on it, so, yes, I'll never or the trays that had I mean, these are real prison trays that had the cutouts, right? It was, like, molded and you had,
Yeah.
like,
No, I didn't have
sections,
those. But I
so
didn't my mom didn't pay for or my parents didn't pay for the school lunch. I often brought it, but I I tell you what, I would scrounge up they let me pay cash. I would scrounge up, like, change from the sofa because I love that rectangle piece of pizza, which you and I have talked about. And what was the name of that? It was like
Ilio's. It's Ilio's Pizza.
yeah, and it came in this white styrofoam little plate, the rectangular platter, and then it had the saran wrap over it. And I always got the sausage one, and then I would get a chocolate milk, and I would always get some kind of chocolate treat for dessert. And I would literally I would have my lunch. My mom would pack my lunch, but I was like, I do not want this. It would always be like bologna or she would pack me stuff I never the Nature's Valley granola bar, and as a kid, those things are so freaking dry.
They
I
still
mean,
are,
now they are, but now I kinda like them. It's weird, but yeah, I
'cause you're
didn't
old.
like them. You like granola as an elderly person? Is
No,
that the
those
sign?
5, but
No.
the kids typically I mean, did your kids grow up eating granola?
No,
Right,
because I
so
didn't want them to eat anything I didn't like. I mean, I offered, but most of the time I let them eat what they want.
yeah, I'm trying to think. My mom packed lunch, but then didn't. But I didn't like lunchroom food because I was such a picky eater, so I don't think I
Mm.
ate much lunch, but I was, like I literally was so emaciated as a child just because I
You
never
were a
ate.
very thin kid. and young adult.
Yeah,
Do you
that's because
remember the heat
I didn't like
lamps?
eating. Oh, yeah, they still have those.
Yeah, I know,
They
but
still have those.
I remember the red glow of the heat lamp and the crinkle fries. Everybody always got like, all my friends always wanted the crinkle fries.
I didn't like
And
crinkle
everybody
fries.
I didn't like them either for some reason, but everybody was always like, "What's the food for today? What's the food for today?" And people would come out, and eat. Did you ever have people to sit with at lunch when you were a little kid?
Oh, that's tough. Little, yes. Like middle school, it got a little dicey.
Yeah. I can't remember, actually. I think I didn't have a lot of people that I sat with, but
But wait, I wanna go back to the crinkle cut fries. Do
oh,
you
okay.
remember the brand? Do you know why I didn't
Or
never
Ida?
liked crinkle
No,
cut
I
f
don't know.
yeah,
Was it
good
really? Oh,
job.
okay.
Wow. Wow, you pulled that one out quick, pause.
I did.
But yes, and they always tasted freezer burnt, right? You would bite into it, you'd always
Yes,
know it was a
yeah.
frozen french fry, unless you were tossing it in the fryer, which typically people I don't know, I shouldn't say typically, we never did in our house.
No, we didn't have a fryer, but I didn't like them because they were always limp, like soggy. They may have come out crispy, but over time under the heat lamp, I feel like they always melted. So they never look good. And I don't like soft fries. They have to be crispy.
Pause.
But
Yes.
anyway,
Yes, I agree, and then they would be sitting under that heat lamp for an eternity,
yes,
just
yeah.
sweating and getting nasty. Yeah, so
Did you have lunchroom
lunchroom
duty?
food
Did you ever have to
no,
really? We had lunchroom duty.
no, I don't remember anyone having lunchroom duty. I mean, public school, I'm trying to think what that would even entail, but I do remember the tables would fold out of the wall. So,
Oh,
literally, they would
really?
fold out of the
Wow.
wall because it was like a multi-purpose room, so it was a lunchroom, and then it could be
Oh,
turned into
right,
so they
right.
would fold down. Same with the bleachers in the gymnasium. They would retract back. I don't know if you remember that. Like they would
Yep,
fold
we
out
had
and then
those.
retract back. So, and assembly day was like a big deal because you were getting
Oh,
out of
yeah.
class, right? Like
I like that.
assembly day. Oh my goodness. Forget about it. Forget about it.
Yeah,
So,
true.
trying to think what other fun, you know, this episode had a lot more ideas in my head when coming to snow. And I'm like, what other nostalgic things can we refer to? I've been seeing all over my Facebook feed, I guess because I watch a lot of nostalgia stuff. I'm at that age where I'm feeling nostalgic and I get a lot of interesting stuff. So, TV, right? Let's say you were sick, homesick. And we were talking about this the other day
Uh,
because we have
mhm,
5,000 channels of TV and
right.
can never find anything in every freaking streaming service, blah, blah, blah. So the other day, there's the Price is Right channel, the Bob Barker years. So
Which is funny, it's
literally
a whole channel dedicated to this.
24/7 of Bob Barker's Price is Right. And we're sitting there watching it. And I was like, gosh, this was one of my favorite shows to watch when I was home from school. I don't know why. I have no clue what the draw was, but I loved that show and all the games. And they gave away, I was like, man, I want to be on the Price is Right. That was like a dream for a while. I want to be on the Price is Right. But that show couldn't get away with what it got away with then today, like the kissing and reaching in my pocket for the $100, right? Only women got to reach in the pocket,
Uh-huh.
Bob, you
Yeah.
dirty dog. So literally Bob Barker sexually harassing everybody on stage.
I
Those
told you
those
what
were
he looked like. He looked like a cross
yes.
between Mister Rogers and who did I say? Ed
Sure.
McMahon. I was like, he's suave, but yet not at the same
Hey, make sure you
time.
get your pet spayed and neutered. My guy controlling the pet population. So, and then you had the
During
Barker's Beauties too. I mean, you can't
Yeah,
forget the
true.
Barker's Beauties.
When I was
Big
home from
scandal.
school, whether it was weather or sick, all I remember, it was always hard to find stuff to watch. I mean, it wasn't like you could just pop it. I mean, you had a VCR if you had one, but it wasn't like on demand or you could cast or stream your favorite show. So it would be soap operas all day. And
Which
I
was the
remember as a
worst.
kid watch it and being so bored with it. And
I couldn't get into them either.
yeah, but I will tell you that another thing I love to do, and one of the things that will appear because I still want to create this will appear in one of my art shows at some point as an installation piece. But one of the my favorite things to do was create a fort, whether it was like a rainy day or a snow day. And my mom would always let me use the dining chairs because they were like these old ladder back chairs with the rush seats. And you would drape the blankets over it, and then you would put them up against the couch. So those were the walls, and then you would use the couch and build up the cushions to make the other part of the fort. And I remember we had this tiny little TV, and my mom would actually take me, or she would let me use the TV in the fort. And it was awesome. So I would watch cartoons like early in the morning, and I put like a blanket in there, and I get my books. And I mean, I would spend a lot of time taking all this stuff into the fort, and I loved it. I mean, it was such a cool space. You had to have the snacks, you had to have the TV for cartoons, and then you'd have like, I loved books too as a kid. Books, books, books. Books were a huge thing for me. So I'd always take books in there. And my dad, I remember my dad would get in the fort with me a lot. So my dad was very much, he really enjoyed doing fun things like that. So I've posted this on my Instagram before about my dad and I always making paper airplanes, and he was always doing the fort with me. He would read me stories and use different voices, especially with Goldilocks and the Three Bears. So he had a lot of imagination, which was cool. So
So, did you have a lineup of shows that you would watch if you were home from school, let's just say? Do you
oh
remember the
yeah.
lineup of shows? Like, would you like to share that lineup?
Excuse me. Yes, I would. I used to love DuckTales. After school, it would be DuckTales, and then there would be, gosh, what is the name of that show? I did what? Well, it was either Saturday morning or after school, and I can't remember which shows were on when, but Tailspin was another one. I don't know if people remember that. Mighty Mouse, definitely watched that one. Rainbow Bright, The Smurfs, those were definitely the top ones. And I loved Charlie Brown. So I loved the Charlie Brown cartoons. But my love for TV cartoons came from newspaper comics, which I'm sure a lot of people can relate to. Is you would read the comics, and then being able to see those animated on TV was amazing. I loved anything Disney. I would remember Sunday night, they would do a movie on the Disney Channel every Sunday night. And I totally would look forward to it, and I would see the ads on TV during the week, and I'd be like, I think I was like 5 or 6. My mom, she'd want me to take a bath Sunday night, and I'd be like, "Mom, I have to take my bath now because I'm gonna miss the start of the movie." You couldn't rewind it like you can now, so there was like this urgency to plan around special TV shows. So I would definitely watch those types of things. What about you?
For me, it was, I guess, kind of getting into more of the anime type. So I loved Voltron. I loved Thundercats. I loved Our Star Blazers, which are
Mhm.
that's probably a reference you don't even remember.
No.
And I was weird as a kid too, which probably is no surprise. I loved PBS. So I loved watching all the cooking
Oh,
shows on
yeah.
PBS.
Oh,
So I'd watch,
really?
yeah, The Galloping Gourmet. I'd watch,
Oh, that's funny.
Julia Childs. I'd watch Jacques and Julia. I'd watch, the heck was his name? He was the pastry chef, world famous pastry chef, and he would have like these little cartoons, and he'd have kids in the audience. It was just
Oh,
I
that's
was
really cool.
addicted to PBS cooking shows. The other ones, as far as like could not miss, I'll never forget. So I can't remember if it was Friday or Saturday night. It was one of the weekend nights, and back in the day, when my parents were married, they would go out, and
Mhm.
before they would go out, the TV would always my parents had a TV in their bedroom, and the TV would always be on, and we'd always be crowded around the TV watching, and it would always be so my dad loved the show Solid Gold. I don't know why. He just loved that show. He loved the dancers the Solid Gold dancers. So we'd be watching Solid Gold, and I think it came on after the Muppet Show. So
Okay.
we were in the room planted to watch the Muppet Show, which absolutely loved. One of my absolute favorite shows ever was The Muppet Show. And then they had another show, I think it was called Bonkers, that came on after The Muppet Show, and then maybe it was Solid Gold. So That was kind of the lineup, and then my parents would go out. So that was oh, and then if they got home in time, they would let us watch a little bit of The Love Boat, but never Fantasy
Mm,
Island. That was a
okay.
bridge too far. So Fantasy Island, we weren't allowed to watch.
I did watch Gilligan's Island. I remember that. And then I used to get so frustrated on Saturday morning. I'd watch all my favorite cartoons and I wanted it to keep going, but it would always end around like 11 or 12 o'clock. I can't remember. And it would go straight to WWE or something, some kind of local wrestling. I will never forget that that feeling of being so bummed out.
I loved MASH too.
I
MASH,
never
Hill
watched
Street
that.
Blues, ER.
My
Oh, that's later
sister
though.
definitely watched that with my dad.
Yeah,
That
Hill Street
Beverly
Blues, oh,
Hillbillies.
so good. I didn't
There
watch
were a
the
bunch
I
of
didn't
shows.
love the Beverly Hillbillies, but I liked Hogan's Heroes. That was another one I used to watch. So, which was crazy. That was, it was kinda almost I don't wanna say modern day Three Stooges, but had kinda like that slapstick.
Oh, Three Stooges. I totally forgot about that. My dad got me on I was just talking about him earlier. He was always so like had a sense of humor. So he would have me watch the Three Stooges, and my mom would always be like, Martin, don't have her watch that. And my dad would be like, oh, it's fine. Ha ha. And we would laugh hysterically together. I love the Three Stooges. And he was always getting me on to these things. There was a book called The Twits. And I don't know if anybody has heard of that book. Actually, I gotta look up. I can't remember who the author is. It's someone we know. Roald Dahl. So my dad absolutely loved that book. And I remember at nighttime, he would read it to me and he would kind of act it out. He liked to act out the characters in the books
It
with
runs in the
voices.
family.
Yeah. So my mom was always like, Martin, don't read that. And and he would, and it was just like it was about a couple, an old couple they were married and they lived together, and they just did like pranks to each other. They were constantly pranking each other, and like one of them glued the other one to the ceiling and glued everything upside down. Anyway, so it was kind of crass, like but at the same time, it was fun. It was hilarious, but I was also mentioning too, like when I built the forts during, like if I was having a sick day or it was a rain day, I loved bringing my books in. And books were a huge part of my childhood and still are part of my life. I don't know if you had any favorite books that you used to read.
I was not a great reader. I didn't love books. So
Mhm.
I think for me, if the books had a lot of illustrations in them, I would page through it, but it was very
Yeah.
hard. I don't know why, I just
No,
struggled
I get it.
reading, but Where the Sidewalk Ends was a book that is forever burned in my brain. I'll
I
never
can qu
forget
I
that
can s
book.
quote it. I can quote a poem from that book. Another one that my dad loved to read because it was so funny. Teddy said it was a hat, and so I put it on. Now Dad's saying, "Where the heck's the toilet plunger gone?" Can you believe I still remember that to this very
No,
day?
absolutely cannot
I can't
believe you
remember
remember that.
half the stuff like I did yesterday, but I can remember that poem,
I
"The
was just
Plunger."
enamored by the title,
Mm.
Where the Sidewalk Ends. I don't
It
know what
was
it is.
interesting.
It just
Yeah.
captivating, and the illustrations, I just loved that kinda single line, black and white, just was cool.
Yeah, yeah, very linear. That was cool. I love the McDonald's books. They used to put those little books in it would be like the Muppet Babies or, whatever the movie was coming out, they would put a book in the McDonald's Happy Meals, and I love those. I love the imagination and creativity. I think I lived completely in a world of imagination and creativity as a kid. My mom was really good at creating space to be creative and to be imaginative. She was an artist in all ways, like decorating, cooking. She did a lot of art. She liked to write. And I think I picked up a lot of that. And then my dad had a really good sense of humor and he was pretty good with his hands. Like he built me a dollhouse. So I think it's funny how like a lot of those things kind of filter into who I am today. But I loved books. I loved going to the library. I can't tell you how much I love libraries from my childhood, I feel like libraries have changed a lot. They charge you a lot for a lot of stuff now. And I've been reading this cool book about library history and how people always working at the libraries were all about it needs to be a place for everyone. It needs to be a free and accessible tool. Tool's probably not the right word for it, but resource or space for everybody. And I really love that. And so we would go to the library constantly and I'd check out the books and I couldn't read fast enough. And I'm like you, I loved the picture books. I loved looking at pictures. Like I was obsessed with it.
See, I have the exact opposite.
You don't like libraries?
Shocking. So I libraries were like a torture chamber for me. I just
Really?
couldn't stand being in the library, right? The stupid Dewey Decimal System, which was, gosh,
Yeah,
trying to find a book using that was,
I remember that.
calculus. And
Did
then,
you ever have a class on library and research? That used to be
yeah, we
part
had
of
to
the
learn.
curriculum, the
Yeah,
Dewey
it
Decimal
wasn't called
System.
that, but we had to learn the Dewey Decimal System. So we
Okay,
had a library in our school, in our middle school. We had a decent library where they taught us the Dewey Decimal System. So,
okay.
but yeah, I never liked the library. And my mom, I think she was on her second master's degree in math,
Mhm.
calculus of all things. My mom was very
Smart.
smart, did not flow down the chain of command
That's
here.
not true. You have an engineering brain for sure.
So, she was always studying due to her compulsive personality, so she would take us to the library as she would study for hours for these math exams, and she would be tutoring or being tutored, so it was miserable. I mean, there's not I did not have the same appetite to read as you have illustrated that you did, so I'd just be sitting there bored out of my mind,
Did they
and
have a
getting in
children's
trouble.
section?
Yeah, but I didn't like
Was it not
reading.
very good? Okay.
It could have been great. I just hated reading. I don't know why.
Where would
It's
you have
it
rather have been? Outside playing?
Yeah. Yeah, I would have
Yeah.
much rather have
You're
been
much
with
more
my friends,
outdoorsy.
and I just wanted to always be out with my friends. Like, that
Yeah.
was always the most important thing was how soon can I get out to be with, and I had a lot of friends. Well, I
You're
shouldn't
very
say a lot of
social.
friends. I had well, I went through a couple tough years where I didn't have any friends, but
Yeah.
the friends growing up that I had, I mean, we were always either on our bikes or outside building something or hurting ourselves. Like, literally, our big thing, and anyone from the Gen X generation, I feel like kind of is similar, but like we always wanted to launch something off of a ramp,
Mhm.
whether it
Yeah.
was on a bike, a scooter, anything with wheels, it had to get airborne. It just
Yeah.
had to. So I loved doing that. That was one of my favorite things with my friends. We're building a tree fort, it, giving us power tools to climb up a tree and construct something. Great idea for
Ooh.
like an 11 or 12-year-old, right?
I always wanted to build a tree house. That was such a huge thing for me. I was always wanting to try everything. Like, I was very much an experimenter. I loved reading about inventing things and innovation, and I wanted to be a skater. I wanted to try karate. I wanted to do marine biology. I mean, it it's funny how kids are always so open to try most kids are always wanting to try new things, launch things off, the top of a building, because 'cause you're always curious. You've got that curiosity. Well, what will happen? And I wish that we didn't lose that as we got older, that curiosity.
So I feel like for me, I totally agree with what you're saying. It is a magical time, but for me with an older brother, that curiosity turned into something much worse. So I'll never forget my brother. I was very outgoing as a
Uh-huh.
child. I just loved getting into things. Now, Peter, I don't know what he just loved to dominate every situation. So he was very creative as well, but not for good reasons. So I'll
Uh,
never forget, I loved my 10-speed bike. I loved my BMX bike when I was younger, but my 10-speed bike, I used to bike everywhere, like everywhere. I'll never forget, he put vegetable oil on my brakes.
are you serious? Oh my
Yes.
gosh. You're like,
So,
"That's like borderline murder. Hello?
well,
Oh my
yes,
gosh."
he was very like I said, he was very creative. One time he took a Timberland boot
Misdirected.
and he strung it up in the closet, so when you opened the door, it would hit you in the head. That was a fun one.
Oh my gosh.
He put dog doo-doo in my bed, so I got
That
to smear around in that.
I'm disgusted by.
Yeah, he and a bunch of other fun things. He
So
was
nasty.
always yes, and he never grew out of that whole, "Hey, you do this," and he was very influential and you did it. So, yeah, he had me put, like every older brother does to their younger siblings, a paperclip in the electrical outlet. That was fun. That was a good one. I
That's
think I was
boys.
like
There you go.
4, so that was
Great.
that was a good
Glad
one.
you're still
Yeah.
alive.
Yeah, it's amazing. He punched his hand through a window because I locked the door and tried to pull me out, and he like filleted his entire arm. So shout out to Peter. He was quite the quite the role model growing up. And for my friends that are listening that knew my brother, will be chuckling to themselves because he was a larger than life personality. So rest in peace, bro. So
Mm.
definitely a larger than life personality. But yeah, we grew up in a time where I just wanted to go out and my brother always wanted to extinguish the fun that I was having. For whatever
Mhm.
reason, he just didn't want me to have fun. So his fun was picking on me and doing awful things. He put
Were you
wasps in my
smaller?
bed too.
Were you smaller than him?
No, my brother was a big guy. He was always big,
I know. Were you
husky.
smaller than him in size?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Not
My
not in height.
sister
Not
my
in height
sister was
though.
smaller than me. I was much bigger than her, and I remember 2 different times, and it's always when my parents were out. I think one time she and we had a TV in the living room. So we had built-in bookcases in the living room, and there were these dark wooden paneled bookcases, like, from the '80s,
Everything
and
was dark in the '80s
the
and
whole
wood
room
paneled.
was actually wood paneled,
Yes.
the whole thing. But we had the fireplace in the middle of the built-ins, so one side of the bookcase had a TV, and it wasn't big, and so my mom had this, like, wing chair in front of it, this green wing chair, so you couldn't really, like it wasn't like, oh, you had a couch where you could sit around and watch the TV. So my sister and I would turn the chair around, she'd sit on the arm, or I'd sit on the arm, and one of us would sit in the chair, and we would watch something. Well, she's 8 years older than me, so there was always something on that she wanted to watch that I didn't, or vice versa. So I think one time it was like Saturday, my parents went out, and they rarely went out like this, but I was like annoyed with her. And I don't remember why, but I knew it was related to the TV. And so I was all like, I'm muscling her and wrestling her. And, that's actually kind of embarrassing. I'm like embarrassed that I did that. I was like, "What was
I
wrong with me?" And
We
then
were
we used
young.
to that didn't happen often, but I always felt bad later that I did that. And then the other times we would argue was always traveling in the car. And we've talked
Mhm.
about this. "Don't look out my window. This is my
Yep.
window." And I would literally try to cover the window, but I wonder who started it. I don't know if it was my sister or if it was me that would always start the arguments.
Did
Maybe
it
she can.
matter? It didn't even
No,
matter.
it didn't
Didn't even
matter,
matter. And
but yeah.
back in the day, you weren't strapped in or anything. You didn't have seatbelts in the back seat. You had the big hump in the
Yes.
middle, right? You were standing up. Hell, one time I was like, I think I laid out on the back where the speakers are in the back window. And
Yeah.
that's when the whole thing came about when it's like, if I turn around one more time. And as a kid, you're
Yes.
afraid of that. But now you think about, and what are you going to do? Right? Like,
You're
honestly, what are you going to
driving.
Right. So, or if God forbid you put the dome light on. Oh my God.
Oh,
You might
yeah.
as well have
Turn
shined
that off.
the brightest light in history in their eyes, your parents' eyes for turning the dome light
Turn
on.
that off. You
And
could
it
you as a wreck.
and it was always bait. Don't touch it. Oh, you just said the words. You just said the
Don't do
words.
that.
I gotta touch it now. I gotta
So
touch it.
true.
I got pause. But yes, it was always the car. Oh my gosh. The freaking
My
car.
sister no, go ahead.
I was gonna say I ran away from home once. That was like the thing to do when we were young. And your parents would always play chicken with you. They were like, "Here, you'll be back." Right nowadays, you'd be like calling the
Yeah.
police, 911. And before it's like, "I'll see you in a
You'll run
couple
out of
hours."
food in an
And you'll
hour.
run out of food. So one time, I did scare the shit out of my mom. I hid in the back of the car and fell asleep. and no one could
Oh,
find me.
really? Oh, that's
Yeah.
scary. That's
But
actually not
yes,
good.
running away back in the day was awesome because literally nobody cared. They were
How
just
did
like,
you
"Go ahead."
how did you run away? Well, first off, real quick, before we jump from the car, on a road trip to Florida, I think I was like 5 or 6, my sister said, "The floor where the hump is, that's a really cool spot to be. You should lay down there and I'll lay up here on the seats." I don't remember exactly how she said that, but that was basically the gist of it, and I think my mom turned around and she was like, "What are you doing? Stop it." But, yeah, okay, so talking about what were you just talking about? See? I forget one or the other.
Gosh, you got me back into car mode. What were we just talking about?
Oh my gosh, help.
So bad. This is
You're
this
oh,
is
yeah,
what
you fell
age
asleep
does.
in the car. You ran
Running away,
away.
run away,
Okay,
running away,
so
running
running
away.
away, how
Wow.
did you run away? I remember one time I tried that, and I put a handkerchief, I laid it out, I put stuff in it, I tied it to a stick, and I walked out. I think I was, like, again, 5 or 6, and I walked outside, and my mom literally saw me, and she's like, "Here, have a sandwich." And I up the street, and I, like, sat in my neighbor's yard on a tree stump, and then I came back, like, an hour later because I was bored. I was like, "Yeah, I'm ready to go watch TV."
Yeah, I think, I took empty Tic Tac plastic cases and filled them
Uh-huh.
up with iced tea.
Did
That
you
was
really?
my I did I don't know
Oh,
why,
that's
but I thought
funny.
that that was a good idea, and similar to what you just said, I think I would I would walk down the block and I would get maybe 2 blocks away from the house. I'd be out of my little Tic Tac iced tea packets, right? I was parched. I'm like, "Man,
Uh,
this quite isn't working out the way I'd no one was chasing after me, so it
no.
didn't really warrant the response I was looking for, so yes, I would just go home. Be like,
And it was
"Alright, I'm
hot
done."
because I would do it during the summer. I think I did it when I was bored at home, and it was hot, and I was sweating. Yeah. That's so funny.
Running away from home. Do kids run a did your kids run away from home? Did they ever
No.
I feel like that doesn't happen anymore. Kids don't run away from well, I shouldn't say that. As a as
They
a
do. A
as a
lot of teenagers
tactic,
do, but
yeah, I don't wanna say I'm not discrediting, like, or making fun of people that truly run away from
and,
home.
like, because as a childhood experience, it's just like it's not serious. I don't know if kids do that. I'm sure they do. I'm sure they're like, "Oh, I'm gonna go, do this or that." But to me, it was more about imagination and being independent and wanting to like get
Mm.
out and do your thing, and see the world. And I never saw it as like a dangerous thing. It was more about the fun of it.
Yeah, also, you weren't being pumped full of awful information 24/7 where you
No.
can't get away from the news. You actually had to wait for the news cycle to hit before you heard
Yeah.
all the awful things going on in the world, but
I
ignorance
remember
is
my
bliss.
dad watching the 5 o'clock. He'd get home from work. Was it 6 o'clock or 5 o'clock news? It must
They
have
had
been
the
like
5, the
six.
5:30, 6, the 6:30, and then I think it was then the, like, the global news would come on at
Okay.
7.
And
But
my
we
mom
didn't
would
watch
always
that
wanna
because
get
Jeopardy would be on.
you're like, "Can't sacrifice Jeopardy." And my
Uh,
mom would always get newspapers.
mm,
We had
my dad
newspapers
still
delivered.
reads my dad still
Oh,
reads
that's
the
right.
newspaper today. He's every
Yeah.
day reads the newspaper.
It's
Philly
crazy
Inquirer,
how
always.
out of date it gets now. I mean, literally within a minute, it's out of date.
It is interesting when I was on like, riding the train every day in and out of the city for work, I was always amazed at how many people still read the newspaper. It's a very,
Interesting.
I guess there's something just about that habit that people enjoy the tactile nature of physically holding a paper
Oh, yeah.
and the rustling and then paging through it. So I never read the newspaper much, so I never developed that skill. But man, my dad every day, 7 days a week, reads that newspaper.
Mhm.
So he'll send me pictures of articles from the newspaper.
Really? Oh, that's funny.
So
That's pretty cool, though. I like that.
yeah, that was a big deal. The newspaper was a big deal, a very big deal,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and God forbid you skipped, like, paper person didn't, leave the paper.
Yeah.
That was grounds for war.
What did you do during the summer as a kid? Like, we talked about winter, but what did you do during the summer?
I went to camp.
Yeah. Did you go every year?
Yes, and
And how
the
long
first
was
couple
it?
it was like 8 weeks.
Oh, so it was pretty much the whole summer. Wow, okay.
So I went to day camp, which I hated.
It's
I have to say, I've really, really hated it because I didn't love sports when I was younger because I just wasn't great at them. I had some trauma from playing sports like baseball and
Mhm.
stuff, so it kind of stuck with me. I swear, everything in my life was traumatic. I know that sounds dramatic, but
No,
literally,
it really was
I'll
traumatic for you.
never forget. I played little league, and it was a rough time growing up. My parents were on the outs, and so I would get dropped off, and I just had the worst coach ever. He would just yell at me nonstop. So it made me
Didn't
very
really
anxious.
build
No. So
confidence.
made me very fearful. And they kept hitting me with the baseball when I would get up to bat. So it made me afraid of the ball.
Mhm.
They put me out in left field, in the blazing hot sun. No one could ever hit that far. So it was just miserable, and I was
Yeah.
always getting yelled at. And other sports I had played, I had some similar experiences. So I wasn't huge into sports, and day camp, that was a huge part of the curriculum.
Mhm.
And I just hated running around like soccer. I just didn't like playing soccer. I didn't like running around in the heat and kicking a ball around.
Yeah.
Um, I did not enjoy those years. That's what I can't believe I'm talking about this. So I started to go to art camps. So heavily into music and art
Yeah.
and photography and other things, which was great. I got to, really hone in on I loved playing music. I played saxophone for like gosh, almost 20 like not 20 years, like 15 years.
Mhm.
And I learned how to read music properly, music theory, learned how to play jazz, like which is extremely difficult.
Which is crazy because I think you get that from your mom, that math
Yeah,
brain. Because I'm not good at reading music. I cannot. I'm terrible at it. It's a real
it's
skill,
just yeah, well, I guess after you get used to it, and I played in a bunch of different bands, so
and you
that
love
was my
music.
outlet. Yes, and that was my outlet. I regret, you always hear your parents, "You'll regret this later in life." I do regret kinda letting that go, and not
Yeah,
continuing to play because I really music was such a great outlet for me.
right.
So that was something so that's what I did in the summers, and then I started going to overnight camp, and those were just different years for me, and we won't get into some of those years because they were traumatic, go figure, but for the most part, sorry, my
Well,
nose keeps running. For the most part, I enjoyed
parts
more
of
of
it.
the arts part of it as opposed
Yeah.
to the sports part. Although I was good. I was a great swimmer and a good diver, so I did find my sporting outlet later in life, but
Because you got that broad back.
I was a good freestyle swimmer, 50
Uh-huh.
freestyle.
Then
I
broad
could
shoulders.
rip through that water.
My summers were always very boring. So I always wanted to go to camp, but I actually wish that if my mom had sent me to camp early, when I was young, I would have gotten used to being away from home. But my mom actually would never let me go to camps. And
Hmm.
I was a very sheltered child. And so when I did finally go away for my first trip, it was a school trip. It was eighth grade, I think. I got super homesick and cried the first night and felt
Sound like
ill.
my sister.
Yeah, so it was but, over the summers as a kid, we always had summer reading to do. So, I couldn't wait for summer because I could just do whatever I wanted to. I would play, I would watch cartoons. I mean, it was that I looked forward to. But
Just thinking
the summer reading I always put off, and they were books that it's funny, they were classics, but I never enjoyed them. I didn't
hmm,
enjoy reading them. Now, I always loved when I got to pick my own book, which as I got older, like 8, 9, 10, I think that in the summer reading, they would always tell you you could pick one book of your own choosing from the list. And so I would pick out books that I would want to read. I feel like a lot of people are like this. Actually, probably most people are like it. If it's something you enjoy reading, you're more likely to read it, right? It's hard to stay self-disciplined to read stuff that you really don't have a lot of interest in. But
you're not wrong.
I really am glad they had the summer reading program. And actually, when the kids were little, we would do it through the church, the summer reading program at church and through the library. And they would get awards and little treats and things. And the kids love to read because of that. But go like, a lot of kids that I knew went to, like, Disney over the summer, they'd go on a trip or, we never went on trips, hardly ever. And if we did, it was either to see my grandmother or my grandparents, or it would be a work trip that my dad had to go on to the beach, which was always really fun.
Yeah, we didn't travel much either when I was a kid, so it just for whatever reason with 3 kids, I guess it was we just didn't do it. Later in life, we did. We would always have, somewhere to a couple weeks down the shore or at the beach, but
Not when you were little.
no, I don't ever remember going to the beach as a little kid. So, and we
Really?
didn't live yeah, we didn't live that far from the beach, and I could just block it out. I just it's not something I remember.
Yeah.
So, we were only about 2.5 hours, 2.5 hour drive from the beach or 2-hour drive, so but doing that for a day, I don't know, those weren't my parents weren't those type of parents. They weren't, like, doing
Mm.
day trips, right? Like, "Hey,
Yeah.
everyone, let's get in the car and do a date." No, no, we're not doing that, children.
So I have a question for you. I'm
Mhm.
moving to a different topic. Birthday gifts
Mm.
when you were a kid, did you ever have any really special ones that you loved, growing up in the era that we both grew up in?
Ooh, that's a tough this can sound weird. I got one of these, like, handheld microscopes, and
Cool.
I just love that thing. I loved it, and one time my mom bought me this big styrofoam airplane. You attach the wings
Yeah.
to the side,
Yes, I remember those.
go outside, and that was just it lasted all of what, like, probably 20 minutes before it, like,
Yeah.
broke in half, but those were great 20 that was a great 20 minutes, and that magnifying glass thing, Brookstone, I'll never forget. I saw it in a
Yeah.
Brookstone catalog
Uh-huh.
because my dad was notorious for sharper image in Brookstone,
I love
and
those.
the Brookstone store was magical for
It
me.
was.
That was
It
I
was.
just everything in there, whether it was that super awesome massage chair that was
Oh,
always insanely
yeah.
expensive that no one could ever afford, or just some random, like, handheld
Cool
microscope.
toy. Yep.
So, it was very, very cool. So, yes, those were some of the toys that and probably the best toy or the best present I ever got, which was huge for me, was my RC car, my remote
Oh,
control car.
yeah, I remember you saying that, yeah.
It was called a big wig. It was four-wheel drive, had a drive shaft in it. I had to build it, really got to learn kind of some mechanics through that. It had
Uh-huh.
I'll never forget building the coilovers, the shocks. You had to fill them with oil, you had to prime them, you had to get the tension right. I mean, this was like an amazing experience to learn how to build something and then literally understand what you're building will impact the way the car performs. So it was awesome.
That is cool.
That was my favorite. And then I wanted to get into remote control airplanes, but that never happened.
Yeah. Anything remote controlled was amazing, like the
Yes.
cars or the planes, but we never had that. But Sharper Image represented innovation and invention to me as a kid. It was the only place where you could find things you could never find anywhere else. I got a Skip It for
Uh,
my birthday one year. It was a pink Skip It, and I absolutely love that thing because I used to love to jump rope, and I learned, like, double dutch and it was all from school, like, learning at
yeah,
playground recess.
we had to do double dutch at school. We
Did
learned how
you?
to do yeah, like it was part of gym.
Yeah, it was cool that we were able and they would do jump rope contests, and so the skip it and I love that it counted how many skips you did. So I thought that was super cool. The Hawaiian Barbie came with a little pod of hard perfume that smelled like pineapple. And I still to this day, like I can envision in my mind how it looked in the box, what she wore, how it smelled. Isn't that crazy that I can
It
remember
is.
it so well?
It's
And
kinda
then,
like the strawberry shortcake doll. You'll never forget the
yes,
way that plastic strawberry smell, you'll
yes.
never forever burned in your
Absolutely.
nostrils.
Yeah, so I would get some really fun birthday gifts. The kids that I were around, a lot of their moms were always finding the newest things to buy. So if I was fortunate enough to have a birthday party where I had a lot of school friends come, I would always end up with some pretty cool gifts, or at least like one or two that were really fun that like my parents probably wouldn't buy. So I always like that monogrammed things were a big thing, so getting something monogrammed was super cool, like your pencil supplies or your pencil case, getting your that was I can't remember the store. There was a store back in Memphis that did monogramming and they may still be open, but they did it for years. And that's where everybody would go get their stationery sets and, monogrammed with their name and things like that. That was real big back then.
So, going back to gifts or continuing with gifts, I'm curious, what
Uh-huh.
did you buy your parents as gifts back then? Like, if
Uh,
they would give you a little bit of cash and,
yeah.
because they wanted you to whatever, for whatever reason. So, what did you used to buy your parents as a gift?
So the school I went to, they were very big into the arts. Now that I'm looking back, I realized how big they were into the arts. So music, theater. It was an all girls school. So we had art classes, music, theater, I mean, academic classes, of course. But so I didn't buy gifts a lot. I made gifts in class. So I remember like making a little vase of flowers with like, a little card for my mom for Mother's Day, or for my dad, it would be like decorating a construction tie. But when I did buy things for them, it was always the very mom and dad stuff. It was like buy my dad a tie, or always like I was always, when I got older, looking for a massager. He was always wanting to be massaged, like, so I'd get him like the little massager for the chair at
Oh
Walmart,
my.
or, the foot massager, or, I mean, now that I look back, it's funny. My dad was probably stressed all the time from work. So, and coffee mugs, picture frames. Picture frames were really big back then. So I'd like at school, they'd take a picture of us and then put them in a frame for like Mother's Day or Christmas. It would be an ornament, that sort of thing. Those were
Ours
kind of
was
this.
yeah, the biggest thing I remember was Wix and Sticks, the candle
What is
store.
that?
It
I don't
was a
remember that.
candle store, and they had super elaborate, like, figurine candles. They were that was just
Oh, that's
God
funny. You
yeah,
pulled
shout
that
out to
out of the
my God
past.
bless my mom, right? So, she would always be so gracious in receiving this gift, but these candles were cool to look at, but, my mom didn't really want a wizard candle, like,
Oh, that's
the
funny.
wizard candle and the staff,
Oops.
but anyway, just drop that
Yeah.
phone. So if anybody remembers, comment if you remember Wix and Sticks. It was in the mall or where they were in malls, and that'll have to be another episode, our favorite stores growing up.
Oh
That'll be a
gosh, we
fun
could
one.
totally get into that.
Stores and brands, but I feel like
Yeah.
we've just scratched the surface on some nostalgia talk. So I like this episode. I like talking about this stuff because it makes me feel good
Yeah.
remembering some of these great memories, and also enjoyed listening to your memories as far as, what lights your lights? What lights your light?
Well,
What lights you up? Man, that
certain
sounds
memories,
terrible.
we're gonna run past that. No, some memories, funny enough, will trigger other memories that I've forgotten about. So when I hear other people talk about things, I'm like, "Oh yeah, I forgot about that." So it's always fun to hear what people remember, because everybody remembers a lot of the same stuff, but then you'll remember other stuff, and I'm like, "Wow, thanks for reminding me."
Yeah, so comment in the comments some of your favorite nostalgic memories, or just some of your
Yes.
favorite memories at all, or favorite stores, favorite brands, favorite cartoons, favorite lunchbox, any of the top favorite sled, favorite snow memory. We could go on and on and on. Yeah. So this was we'll definitely have to continue. We'll have to do a couple parts of the nostalgia series. And if
Yes.
anyone wants to jump on and talk nostalgia, hit us up. Hit us up because I feel like when you start talking about this stuff, I forget it. I forget what so yeah, getting old's fun. Any case, so that's gonna bring us to a close on what is this? Episode 17.
Mhm.
Episode 17 of The Well, the
Yeah.
nostalgia episode, the reach back. So thanks for tuning into The Well. Make sure you're liking, following, subscribing, commenting, engaging, all the wonderful things. And thanks for all the support that we have been receiving. Thanks for helping us grow our platform. We do appreciate it.
Stay warm.
Yeah, stay warm. It's right now in right outside of Dallas. It's 12 degrees, but with the wind chill, it's 0. So
The wind
people
trill.
don't think it gets cold, the wind chill. People don't think it gets cold in Dallas, but it does. We get a winter. It was a
Mhm.
surprise to me as well. And on that note, we're going to bring episode 17 of The Well to a close. I'm Drew,
And I'm Kat.
and thanks for tuning in. We'll see you on episode 18. Bye.
Bye.